Choram sogi choram ba, janchu badu dami kyamsu chi, dati shukye kikwe sonambi, kola penche sangye drupa sho. Choram sogi choram ba, janchu badu dami kyamsu chi, dati shukye kikwe sonambi, kola penche sangye drupa sho.
Good job. You guys have to look.
Yeah.
It's okay. Maybe not. Maybe not.
I think so turn off the audience to hear.
Well, we can, especially with the AC, it's hard to hear other people and hard to hear on the internet.
So ground is a clear realization of one who has entered a path that serves as a basis for the many good qualities that are its effect.
Okay, everybody got it?
Yeah.
Okay, remember, okay? This is the basic. This is always come to, even we go back to the, what call it, philosophy, that this, many times we have to remember, otherwise always, very similar to the thing. Just a little bit different, then confused. Then how many there?
How many divisions are there?
How many divisions are there? Someone know? Yeah?
Divisions of grounds,
Yeah, how many
Yes.
there? Yes.
Hinayana and Maya.
Yeah.
Hinayana, ground and Maya.
Hinayana, Maya. Yeah.
Say it.
Keep on signing.
Nobody. I reject.
What is that?
The Hinayana grounds and the Mahayana grounds.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. This is basic. Because what we stop last night? Actually, where we stop?
We stopped on
It was number
page 17,
18.
maybe?
What page?
18.
I wasn't here last week.
Before the path of preparation, before the hearer's path of seeing, in between those two.
아까 트레이드요. 다 주로 제라는 계속 시행했어. 뭐?
So we're talking about the path of preparation, right? The path of preparation has 4 different divisions, right? Or 4 different levels. It's called the heat, peak, forbearance, and the spring mundane quality, right?
다 뒤오더라 다 그런 저거 뒤에 때문에 대전 법의 메소드, 대전 법이 니도 법에서 있으니 그런 저거 뒤에 때문에 니도 법의 메소드, 니도 법에서 있으니.
And then it says the clear realization of a truth of a hero which arises after the completion of the path of preparation of a hero, which is its own cause and which is produced before the path of meditation of a hero, which is one effect. So that's the definition of hero's path of seeing. Right?
다음도 단어에 다 인투 소노소노니 토노 고노 도노 섬치 다 남가시기 was.
And so now we're talking about the 5 paths of the heroes, right? And so the path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of number learning of the hero's vehicle.
다내 강사들 다 토마 나라의 수용이 내가 다 노다라고 그래서
And so this is how it is, how the things are when you first enter into the path.
밥배 차려오셔나 강사들이랑 아니요. 딱 고아를 해가지고 내주고 선배 남자와나 다 강사들 남으시고 그랬어.
And so the person, whenever he or she realizes renunciation, whenever he or she generates renunciation, that is a kind of a feeling discussion towards the cycle existence, and then wants to be free from that throughout day and night. So that's called renunciation. So whenever he or she has generated that, then that's when he or she has entered the path.
좋아. 아니 그대가 나도 람라시고 람 토마시고 거기다 토놈이 버렸어.
And so that is when we call such and such have entered the path. So the first path is called the path of accumulation.
다 사제와를 인지미지 다 람라시고 버렸어.
So in order to achieve enlightenment, you must enter the path.
다 인주 선배 인주가 삼바 jelakja와다. 아니 토놈 다 중을 토가 되냐 말이죠.
And so at the same time as you generate the renunciation, a genuine renunciation, you enter into the path. They are both at the same time, simultaneously.
아니 들이 가다들 다 나주시 가사서 그랬죠.
And that kind of person is called the person who have entered the path.
저 한번에 삼성 측에서 단위 때에서 한번에 뭐 고르던 거.
So these are the terms that you have to understand, you have to be familiar with. If you're not, then you can get confused.
이렇게 다 안에 전화나요. 전화 줄이 주선 숨샤고 그래요. 가사도 랍사이 맞.
So last time we already talked about that, right? The path of accumulation is also divided into 3, great, middling, and small.
다 동조 지나고 레하오로 샤와이나 안에 방법 전원 중부터 근데 저 디파 중부터는 저 마다브라타 손은 거쳐 강사 거와도 사스 링 토발라 손은 거쳐 강사 가는 게 가지 사스는 아니다 네 링파도 그래서
And so the first path of accumulation you achieve is the small path of accumulation, and then after that you keep on accumulating merit. So when you have accumulated enough merit to enter into the middling level of the path of accumulation, and then you enter into that path, into that level.
보다 더 된다 찍어야 되네 다 손없네 jonolaya 봐야 디파라 쪽까지 싸고 같아 같은 싸스 말이나 아니 다 거야 바로 어떻게 맞아.
And so in the same way, when you move up from path of accumulation to path of preparation, you move up as when you have completed accumulating enough merit.
다 쉐동도 소소지가 양치 딱 도배인데 그냥 맞아 봐서 그만 정하는 거 보여다 다이나 같이 땅도 고대원으로 올라와이나 같이 쏘는 거죠. 가서 싸고 가서 싸스마나 다른 거 바로 그래서 다한테 얼마 지금 모양 거죠.
So of course there are many other realizations you can gain as you move up, towards a higher level of the path. But in general, it's the merit. So when you have accumulated enough merit, then you move up to the higher level of the path.
근데 다 근데 손놈도 저놈 고래나 년대지 손놈 저놈 고래나 다 소소시험이 잡으래서 가디나 도바치 요말도.
So normally, in the path, again, in the 5 paths, there are the regular, the ordinary path and the superior paths. And so the first 2 paths, the path of accumulation and the path of preparation, are the ordinary path. So if you are in the path of accumulation or path of preparation, then you are necessarily ordinary being.
다 근데 저놈 다 내야는 저놈 제지 세모지 조바 다 취조 내가서는 다 동만이 다음에 반영하셔 그래서.
And so then you move up to the path of preparation, and then there are also again there are 4 levels, right? The heat, the peak, forbearance, and the supreme mundane quality level. So when you enter into the supreme mundane quality level, you enter into a meditation on emptiness.
되게 다 전다 한번 통과하셔는 다 거기서 다 그러는 와서 단계가 통과하면 안에 다 주지 당했어요. 거기 가셔서.
So when you're talking, the tenets in common, then it's talking about the selflessness of person, but uncommonly for some people at the Buddhist school, it is talking about the emptiness of phenomena.
어디 다 된적이 전화 받을 안에 딱 동만이고 남에라 냐바 샤네 동만이 예스들 같이 또 봐이나 다 되는 전화 받을 봐봐줘 그랬죠.
And so that kind of person, that kind of person on the path, on the supreme mundane quality level of the path of preparation, whenever he or she realizes emptiness directly, then he or she reaches or attains the path of seeing.
어떻게 담보 전화받이 담보 전화받 내가 동반이나 담보 파냐고 저기가 동반이면서 또 말했어 봐.
And so during the time, when he or she is on the path of preparation, he or she has not realized emptiness directly.
다 들리냐봐 샤 제면하니 다 동반이 때 이것도 가지 또 봐나 다 돌아봤어요 저거요.
And so that person, after meditating on emptiness, whenever he or she comes to realize the emptiness directly, then the person becomes a practitioner on the path of seeing.
호텔라 돌아봐라 그래서 다 봐봐라 그래서 다 보나 토마토 이렇게 그래서.
And so that's called the person on the path of seeing. Also, it's called the superior path. It's a person, the superior being. So the person achieves the superior path, and he or she becomes superior being.
호텔다 랑은 저거지 이때 때문에 제대로 되죠. 인도 법에 그냥 또 인도 통합이 인도 법에 생기서 다들 인도 법을 그거야 그래서.
And so that's the definition of so the definition of the ground, of the hero superior. It's the clear realization of the hero superior, which serves as the basis for the many good qualities which are its effect.
다 그거 가지. 다 될라야나 아니 이게 도로 고노 몰라서 다 되는 법아서.
And so then, so the superior path, the hero superior path, has three divisions, and those are the path of seeing, path of meditation, and path of normal learning.
어디시 다디 다 법아 토마 쳐봐. 아니 토마 토봐. 토마에 예스도 토바 다 개념을 봐.
So becoming a superior being for the first time, attaining the path of seeing for the first time, and realizing emptiness directly for the first time, all happens at the same time.
어떻게 가서 대차서도만 다 녀모 봤어. 아니 제대식을 연락 받죠. 그거 내셔서.
And so when the person reaches that level of realizing emptiness directly, the path of seeing, then he or she can use the delusions to serve for others, to benefit others.
그래서 다다난도배나 다다난도 녀모가 장 저거 대가서 다 녀모가 가다가 장이라 가다 판 녀모가 또
So that time you can use your delusions, your attachment, anger, ignorance, and so forth to help others. So right now we are under the control of the delusions. The person is under the control of delusion. At that level, the delusions comes under the control of the person.
아니면 봐봐 나와라 쳐와라 이렇게 도와가고 빠졌다. 나의 말단 쳐와요 말고 같이 딱 만들어 내니까 그러와.
And so at that time he or she is already free, from the sufferings of sickness, death, and so forth. So there's no sickness and no death.
다 되니 다 그래 다 때다 되고 다 못하니 들어 그러와.
And so that is the starting point of achieving the everlasting happiness.
When we reach this kind of path, then we more happy. We don't want to worry anything. Maybe it's too hard, it's too loud.
I think it's okay. With the
Okay.
air conditioners, it's hard to hear.
Oh, everybody heard? Okay?
Sounds great.
Okay. I'm gonna know too loud.
Cover, Geshe-la, cover if you,
You can.
if that's easier, more comfortable.
Okay. Anyway, then now you guys got it. When we reach to we call Papa kadi hoya. Namshi koda kadi hoya. Papa kadi chhoya hakos was.
So now you know when you enter into the path, right? At low level you enter into, when you become a person who has entered into the path. And now you know when you become a person who have entered into the path of seeing. I mean, who has become a superior being. You know now, right? You know now. Do you know now when you become superior being? When?
That's when you realize emptiness direct.
Direct perception.
Okay, you got it? Mark, which part you know?
I understand.
No, which part you know?
Which
So
part
what
are you
level
at?
are you in now? He said. Which path are you in?
Me?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
No answer.
That
Eat. You say eat?
hit.
Sometimes. Not enough merit today.
야, 되지. 다 되라. 나도 영어 샤서 니들 동호거나 동호스 샤서 되니도 봐봐지고.
So the superior path, how many divisions are there? 3. What are they?
Seeing, meditation, and no more.
No more learning, yeah. That's right.
그래. 다 동부 다 나도 니들 동호서 이렇게 되니래. 그리고
So now first we go through the definition of the hearer's path of seeing, right?
근데 라그 지치면 니들이 용어 조지도 중심이 있어. 라그 저거 지면 니들이 고나 마시고 니들이 대방에 니들이 동호서 되니.
I'm not sure.
야, you get it?
You can read it now. What is the definition of this?
What page?
17 at the bottom of 17.
17.
Paragraph
At the bottom of page 17.
Number 8.
Grades.
Number 8, yes.
Clear
Realization
realization
of the truth of the hearer, which arises after the completion of the path, preparation of the hearer, which is its own cause, and which is produced before the path of meditation of the hearer, which is its own effect.
다 랑게 지치면 니들 용어가 조지도 다 랑게 지치면 니들 동호가 다 지치죠. 그래서 지치죠.
So it's pretty clear, right? It says the realization of the truth of a hearer, which arises after the completion of the path of preparation. So it shows that it comes after the path of preparation.
근데 랑게 저거 지면 니들 고나 마시고 니들이 다 대방에 도서요.
And of a hearer which is his own cause, and which is produced before the path of meditation of the hearer, which is his effect. And so effect comes later, and the cause comes before. So in between that is itself, right?
아치다 니발을 다치 빠자도 진담을 하는 거예요. 다때 원만히 가는 거예요. 그때 뭐 넘어가 지도.
So here, of course, there are so many abandonments that you have abandoned and achievements that you have achieved. But I think the detailed explanation about that will come later.
같이 다 담원에 주로 sab서 지그래. 지금 모르는 것도 그만 모르는데 შემ바도 찌바찌바는 없어.
And so first, one that you hear or study, you have to really pay good attention. If you are confused with that, then you will be confused with all of others, all the rest of them, because they're all very similar.
오케이. 답변은 아주 뻑을 놓으니까 다르잖아. 아니 로 담보 타와지. 다 스바 마포 바나도 다 뻑을 니바나 쓰고 대해서.
So it's similar to a child, who is at age 3. So a child at age 3 is a child who has just gone through the age 1 and has not, age 2 and not reached the age 4 yet. So that's the child at age 3, right? Like that.
다 들리 에지 레버 되게 나와요. 코나 약에 그거 담으러 먹어요.
And so in the age 3, in the whole year, there's a child of the winter time, of the child of the summer time, autumn time.
But this is just an example, okay? Now they put something inside the meat. Yes. You guys have something. Oh yeah. Okay, that's not what I'm
So just to give you, more things to think about.
다 대라에는 얘들이 도망 여자이시, 얘들이 도망 제도이시, 되게 고르면 얘들이 도망 숨겨서.
And so when this is divided, there are 3, right? Exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise of hearer's path of seeing, the exalted wisdom of subsequent attainment of hearer's path of seeing, and the hearer's path of seeing, which is neither of these.
다 되지. 대라에나. 다 동부. 라이드 집에 담을 앞에 있는 여바지가 얘들이 대망나도 얘들이 도망 여자식이 생기했어.
And then the definition of the exalted wisdom of the meditative equipoise of hearer's path of seeing is the clear realization of hearer's truth, which is a meditative equipoise focused one-pointedly on selflessness, which is its object.
다 저도 되는 것도 많은데 그때 건 주저에 들어와. 담보가서 가래 하나 되어 집에 얘들이 고놈 마시고 얘들이 대망나도 얘들이 통하면 되니까 와서.
And so, again, pay really good attention to this, don't get confused here. So, the definition of the hero's path of seeing is the clear realization of the truth of the heroes which arise after the completion of a path of preparation of the hero, which is its one cause, and which is produced before the path of meditation of heroes, which is its one effect.
다 대략 얘들이 돈 여자가 시기다. 다 동반하고 남의 넘어가는 게 제일이죠.
And so then when that's divided, there are three, right? So the first one is called the exalted wisdom, and of a meditative equipoise of hero's path of seeing. And so as you can see, it's exalted wisdom. A meditative equipoise, so it's meditating on selflessness or emptiness all the time.
아니 제발 있으나 다 여자를 생각하는 게 그래서 통화에 빠지 여자를 생각하는 게.
And then it says as exalted wisdom of a subsequent attainment. Subsequent attainment is after attaining, right? After attaining that path. And so you have, in other words, sometimes we use the different term called meditative equipoise and post-meditative equipoise. Post-meditative means like not meditating. You have come out of meditation. So during that time, it's called the subsequent attainment.
그러나 여자보다는 다 나도는 이끌되는 거는 그래서 여자보다 돼 이끌되는 거죠.
And so the exalted, the meditative equipoise is like when you are sleeping.
제가 봤을 때 이 사슴이 세트로 되잖아요. 그래서
And the subsequent attainment is when you are awake.
okay, back to walk, go to walk, okay. 다 되니 공으로만 믿는 여자 있어야 돼. 다 니들 돈을 여자시고 말했어. 다 그래. 아니 니들 돈을 제대로 시고 말했어. 다 되니 가능한 게 다 니들 돈을 샤고 그러더라고.
And then there is a path of seeing, which is neither of these two. Right? So, can you think of something? What can that be? What could that be?
And you're just waking up.
then 니들 야,
Using I'm taking a guess, but using the analogy of waking up, the moment between waking up, the moment between being asleep and waking up, just that point. I don't know if that's the answer.
그래서
니쿠와는 야랑어 나 바로 지금 그주저라. 이든 얘가 만들었어.
니 그거지 야랑아지 되네 야다 니쿠를 같이 들어보자. 뭐야 니쿠로 여자가 되네 제가 같아요. 야파 니쿠를 같이 들어줘. 들어오지 시간을 들여서.
Yeah, you can say something like that.
근데 다른
between those two, right? Sleep and awake, or awake and sleep. You awake and then before you go to sleep. Just a moment when you're trying to go to sleep.
다들 지고 가 신당 그런 거 하면 예 세상 말을 찬이 고치는데 가셔서.
And so anyway, so in terms of the object that it's focusing on, then you have different paths like this.
오케이. 다 라이드 지금 담을 뜻이 되냐 봐시게 니들이 되는 거도 강마시. 니들이 돌아녀지 되니세.
So it says the clear realization of hero's truth, which is a meditative equipoise, focused only on selflessness, which is its object.
다 대라는 니들 돈 받지만 너도 되니까 니들 돈.
So that's what we're talking about now, the meditative equipoise, the exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise, of the path of seeing, right? And so now that itself is divided into three. It says uninterrupted path of a hero's path of seeing, the path of a release of a hero's path of seeing, and the exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise of a hero's path of seeing, which is neither of these two.
다 되지 다 되라 얘는 얘들이 돌아 받지만 없어야 돼. 다 그랬나? 다 되나도 얘들이 돌아 토마 도는 사람을 다 되라 받지만 하려고 그러더라고. 다 빠져야 돼. 인이 잡아야 돼. 받지만 없어.
And so the first one is called the path, uninterrupted path of seeing. And so that is the first path of the seeing that you achieve, and that becomes antidote to the delusions.
이제 단단히 그래. 영어 치료 친구 돈이나 넘어 주고 영어 치료 친구 이시. 얘들 통람 받지만 얘들 통람 넘어갔는데 냠바서 어떻게 찍으려 그래도 내가 터치를
And so, the supreme mundane quality, during the supreme mundane quality level of the path of preparation, you go into a meditation on emptiness. And in that same session, during that same session, you achieve, you come to realize the emptiness directly. And at the same time, you move up to the path of seeing, right? And so during that time, the first path of seeing is called the uninterrupted path of seeing, right? And then after that, when you have applied the delusion and apply antidote to the delusion, and you have overcome that delusion, and then you achieve the second one, which is called the path of release. And so these three, the supreme quality level of the path of preparation, uninterrupted path of the seeing, and path of release of the path of seeing, they all three happen in one meditative course, in one session.
이 바로라 거의 하나 다 동모지와데 단 동파체만 나오세. 다때 랑 딱 빠져디 미 원하는 거 가지 강압하거나 빠져디 딱 이거는 도그랬어. 딱 이 부분에
And so they all achieve at the same time. I mean, they achieve in one session, not at the same time, but in one session. So they don't come out of meditation during that time. It's not like supreme quality level, and then you come out of meditation, and then you go back into meditation to the uninterrupted paths. Not like that. They all happen in the same session, without coming out of meditation. So anyway, so the first path is called the uninterrupted path, the path of seeing, and that is the antidote to the delusions.
다 대가 부심만도 가르치. 잘라도 왜나 지금 그래. 딱 주차하면 딱 내가 제대로 지금. 생활로 때때 저기서 나들다. 다 저기서 나.
And so that's like the main tool, to cut, like a knife that's used to cut the vegetables.
Yes.
So once you experience an antidote, you never have that delusion again? It's gone forever?
마지막에 일단 연구 때문에 연구 때는 뭐 가는 거 어디 연구지 봉사가 되는 방에서 때 방지 말해요. 그래서 대지라는 분위기야.
그래서 그런 것까지 빠는 일도 너무 제일 많았어요.
Yes, once you have abandoned the delusion, that is to which that uninterrupted path serves as an antidote. To that delusion to which that uninterrupted path serves as an antidote, that's the rest, yeah. That will not come back at all.
So is the text going to go step by step through each delusion? Is it just generally like saying attachment, but is there?
얼마 더 왔어요. 왔어요.
Then your mother's a religion share with.
레지시아.
Yes.
I just want to say that I've gotten emails from students requesting that we hear all the questions, and that's why we started this microphone, because I've gotten lots of emails, so we can really try to use it. It's going to take a while to get used to.
So I have to say it again.
No, it's okay. The answer is that's okay. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I'm sorry to interrupt.
that's okay.
대신 나 빠져서 소소소소 딱 띵, 빵 토야 되더라. 그럼 뭐까지 빠져야 된다고 했어. 빵 토야.
So the antidote, and the abandonment of that time, to which that delusion and that uninterrupted path serves as an antidote. It's only antidote for that delusion only, not for the whole delusion. Yeah.
그러나 나도 다 타파내가 정신이나 아니 세마 때문에 그런 거 도저히 세마 때문에 그런 됐던 거였어. 달래 정인데 그런 거 줘야 달래 줘야 대주기 그랬어. 아니 마시지 혹 정이나 그런 데 지금 대소로 소소 카카카 봐요.
So there's uninterrupted path for each delusion, each kind of delusion. There's a different uninterrupted path for each different kind of delusions. And so this uninterrupted path only abandons this delusion, and there's another uninterrupted path for other kind of delusions. So it's like, it's kind of different job given to different person. A person whose job is to cut vegetable, cuts the vegetable. A person whose job is to wash dishes, washes the dishes. The person whose job is to cook and cooks. So like that, they all have different duties or different tasks to perform.
어때? 다들 다 동물 어떤도 다 주요하고 너무 납치랍도 맞아. 이 정말 치료 친구 이시지. 동안은 같이 넘어갔는데 딴 양바 차도 찍어야. 여자 대만에 또만 ing에서 그디 또 봐야나. 돌아 봐야. 될라다. 아니 돌아 받지 마. 대가 다른 뭐가지. 다 빠져줘. 대가 다 도와다니. 뒤 빠져 가디 빠나. 아니 들린 여자 시도 다 너를 뭘 받쳐서 말했어. 너를 봐 차서 그랬어. 그러나 그걸로 지체와 되면 맞춰도 그걸로 지체와 되면 맞춰도 뭐 그렇게 별로 그랬어.
And so then, so like I said before, the supreme quality of the path of preparation, who goes into a meditation on emptiness, and then the moment he, in that meditative equipoise, when he or she realizes emptiness directly, then he has moved up to the path of seeing, and then the first path of seeing is called the uninterrupted path of seeing, and that time, so that serves as an antidote to a certain kind of delusion, and so when that delusion is abandoned with that uninterrupted path, then you achieve the path of release of the path of seeing, and then from there, then you again, then after that, then you move up to the different level of the path, like above that is the path of meditation. And so once you have achieved the path of release, of releasing that delusion, or overcoming that delusion, then you come out of the meditative equipoise. So now do you get idea that when this happens, then you are in a path of accumulation. When this happens, then you are in a path of preparation. When this happens, then you are in a path of seeing. Do you get some idea about that? And so we can, we can spend as much time as needed, just to get idea for the first time. And once you get that idea, then later, when you apply that, to different vehicles or different paths, it's similar to that. They're all similar.
다 강사가 다 니들 또 받침을 되죠. 자. 그 강사가 담을 되지. 다네 네 전다가 터모 와이다 다 강사가 담이 잡고 돈이 잡고 말인데 강사 담이 다 저다 터모를 하게 되고.
And so now those are the three main divisions of the path of seeing, right? The exalted wisdom of the meditative equipoise of hero's path of seeing, the exalted wisdom of subsequent attainment of the hero's path of seeing, and then the hero's path of seeing, which another of those two. So then now we're talking about the first one, which is the exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise of hero's path of seeing. And that, again, that itself is divided into three. That's the uninterrupted path, the path of release, and then another of those two. And so here, it's talking about the selflessness, single-pointedly on the selflessness, which is object. So selflessness is in general, right? In general, we're talking about the tenets, all these different schools of thought in common. If we're talking about particularly about Prasanga Madhyamika, then we'll be talking about emptiness. But because we're talking in common of all these different tenets, then commonly they all agree on the selflessness of person.
Okay. 다 니들로 노를 받침을 한다. 강사가 담을 되지도 냠마시게 니들이 대만도 강만시 아라고 뭐가지 빠져지게 여자 끝까지 그냥 싶어 니들이 또 받침을 하지 되니 대라에는 니들이 또 저버제스.
Maybe we can all read together this definition now, right? The definition of the path of the hero's path of seeing. A clear realization of the truth of hero, which is meditative equipoise, one pointedly on the selflessness of persons, and which serves as an actual antidote for the acquired afflictive obstructions, which are the objects of abandonment which correspond to it.
Okay. 다 장은 뭐가지 빨리 이제 그다음 다 따라서 가다가 담을 떼지느냐고 년대지 대마가 된다 가다가 담을 떼지느냐고 했다 년대지 다 대마가 동화가 되고 와 그치 말이야.
And so there are many different parts of the definition, so try to be familiar with each part. And so it says like the clear realization of the truth of heroes, clear realization of the truth, which is in meditative equipoise. So it has to be in meditative equipoise, right? So not in the post-meditative equipoise, but has to be meditative equipoise. One pointedly on, and the equipoise, one pointedly on selflessness of person. So that's one part, which serves as an actual antidote for the acquired afflictive obstruction, which are the objects of abandonment, which corresponds to it. So there are many objects of abandonment, like I said, but abandoned by different kind of antidote paths, right? So it has to be one which corresponds with it. So
Okay.
that's the main point.
다 rāma mōgō yīpa nyētā kato sēdi sētāṋ khuṋsā tā khuṋsā rācā tibē dzē chētibē tā khuṋsā tā tibē mātala āni khuṋsā bā tāṋsā sēdi rīwa.
So the substance of the person and which serves as an actual antidote for the acquired afflictive obstruction. What is acquired? Afflictive emotion. Afflictive, acquired.
Acquired.
Acquired. Acquired.
Solution?
Acquired.
Evolutions over infinite lifetimes.
Acquired, right?
Yeah.
Acquired.
Acquired?
Acquired.
Acquired.
Acquired. Acquired. Afflictive.
They collected, acquired, whatever.
Acquired.
Gain.
Gain. Acquired.
다 tēlā yēnā āni kēshē tā katāṋi jāngā rīsi rīwa.
So now this is something that you have to understand. You know, when what do we call it? Other term we use is intellectual, and then we call it innate, right? Innate is something that is there all the time, not generated, not acquired, not collected, not acquired. You know, by some kind of belief or something. You know, so there are two different types of delusions: acquired afflictive obstruction and innate afflictive obstructions.
근데 다 해체 세야지 다 젠세도 그바 강가라 마테네 다 나초도 먼저 찌어서마다 다 좀바 외워야 돼. 내가 진지해서 그래요.
So innate is something that is there, like kind of naturally. You know, you don't have to have any reason or any belief, you know, to have that kind of obstruction. It's there all the time, and from the moment you are born, it's there.
그다 세바티 다 젠세나 때네 다 휴정을
So
그래서
acquired is something that you got it, you know, because of some belief or because of you know, reasoning in some way. Oh, therefore it's like this. So you reason something because of some reason or because of some belief, you know. Then you say, oh, it's like this. So that kind of obstruction is called acquired obstructions.
그냥 젠세 가는 데서나 그냥 먼저 다내 가위도 따바래 해서 가르쳐나 다 지요 랍서 이와 랍서 생각하지. 지요 캔내가 이와 캔내가 생각하지. 영나 두다지 캔내가 생각. 들으러 오라 때는 가서 제가 내 따바면서 받으나 따서 그 따서.
And so now, for example, you know, somebody says this cup, you know, is prominent. So, you know, so you say this cup is prominent, and because such and such said it, you know, His Eminence said this. Such and such person said it, you know. And so therefore it's prominent. You know. So you grasp, you know, or you think, you know, oh, it's all the time there, you know, it's there, it's all the time there, and so therefore it's prominent. I mean, of course it will break if you drop it, but other than that, you know, it's not really perishing. You don't see the perishing of that, right? You see this all the time there, unless it's broken, but otherwise it's always there, so therefore you might think it's prominent. Or you might think because you said, oh, somebody said this is permanent, therefore it's permanent. So you grasp it at the cup as being permanent, and that's called grasping. You know, so again, you know, that's called acquired grasping, you know, at the cup as permanent, or intellectual grasping, you know, at the cup as permanent.
What is the innate obstruction to knowledge?
알레지도 나한다. 담보 띄워서 해야 돼. 담보도 맞아.
빼셔주세요.
What is the innate obstruction?
다 빼차 차로 샤워이나 다 너무 가나죠. You have some example?
Can one say that whatever one has, you know, accumulated because of past karma is innate, and what one has accumulated in this lifetime is acquired? Can one say that?
저 어머니 저디 이게 나 근데 겨우 들어서 지금 윤전다 이치 이제 킬해져라 틸라네 고다스네 그래서
대마 단단히 마도지가 단단 끝도 가다 있어 봐. 하나 그리고
아마 더 전달을 해 마시고 믿고 사줘라 근데 보다 여봐라 보다 여봐라 근데 영어도 참고되는 해결하다 선제 유대 영에 가서 들려줘라 영에
들리지만 더 강하다. 단단마도 시아시고도 들려도 되라 이와다 또 그러니까 영어도 그가 그 단지 좀 해봐.
So any kind of grasping, any kind of delusion, obstructions that that you have because of believing in something, because of applying some reason, you say, oh, it's like this when it's not like that. You say, oh, this is permanent when it's not permanent. So you say, okay, there's no past and future life. There's no triduous, there's no past and future life. Because you don't believe in Buddhism, because you study in other religion, which says there's no such and such things. Because that's teaching, you say, okay, there's no past and future life. So that is a wrong view, right? So that wrong view is, called afflictive obstruction. But any kind of other delusions, that's there all the time, without having to have any reason or any belief that is in it. Like attachment inside in your mind. Or attachment in the dog's mind, in the dog's continuum. That's an anger or attachment, right? And so that is that's innate delusion.
But isn't that innate also acquired? That's the thing I'm having a hard time figuring my mind. Oh, I'm sorry. But isn't innate also acquired? I mean, something that's innate. I mean, that anger or the delusion that exists in the mind to react. With the mentality of anger, that's still acquired, whether in this life or a previous life. I'm having a hard time finding. I'm having a hard time finding.
That's why you can't say acquired. So again, what does acquired mean in this context? Does it mean just like acquiring something, or what is the specific meaning?
It's a conditioning, right?
Yeah, well, that's why I said another term that we use is called intellectual. So you have to have some intellect, to think that it's that way. So therefore, the animals don't have that. Therefore, they don't have intellectual delusions. They only have inner delusions. The animals. So you have to, even as a human being, if you have not studied some schools of thought, like tenets, then you will not have that thought. So because you study some religion and then that religion taught you that there's no such and such things, and then you believe that there's no such things. So that kind of delusion, that kind of obstruction, then we call it intellectual delusion.
So for an example, by what you're saying, if a snake eats a frog, the snake. Okay. Thank you. So by that example, if the snake eats a frog. The snake isn't intellectually committing an act of murder. He's just under the delusion of killing by eating something else.
Yeah.
But that's still innate. That's innate because he's not intellectualizing it, because he's not making a decision, a cognitive decision.
Yes.
So that's the definition.
Yeah. So it's not making that. Yeah, like you said. There's no intellect in them, right? So the animals, snake, same thing, don't have that. And so when you don't have that the reason to think that it's like this, therefore it's like that. Because it said such and such said like that, so therefore it's like this. Or like even among the Buddhist schools, if you believe in true existence, then it's there's a true existence because the Vaibhashika said that. And then that's the innate delusion, according to the Prasangika Madhyamaka school. Intellectual.
In my mind, I was tripping up on the word innate because innate brings the connotation of something happening causelessly, that it exists in and of itself.
Yeah, that's why I like to say it's almost like naturally,
Yeah.
It's naturally there.
I understand. Thank you.
단단하지라 코로도 차봤다 그 해결해 봤어. 단단 코로 맞아 있는 것 같아요.
So now, it's there all the time, without cause and condition, without any, reasons. It's there all the time. And like the delusions, like attachment, anger in our mind, it's there all the time, right? Even when it's not manifesting, it's there all the time. So those are innate delusions.
답변을 코로로 찍을지 코로 산이지. 그 코로 소설에 야고 맞으면 진짜 코로 이 사대는 거 들이 코로에 빠져 그다음 저거. 그 진짜로 지금 딸 몇번 하고 지금까지 돈 무슨 막 그다음 저거. 되게 그다음 이제 가지.
좀 더 해주시고. 대신에 되게 smart.
다시 좀 해주고.
더 해주고 뭐라 딜러 혼자서 봐. 뭐도 줘야 되잖아요.
뭐도 줘야 돼. 딜러 가.
혼자서
그다음 얘는 다 때가 무슨 다리까지. 대선도 다리. 일단 그다음 해야 전대 회식으로 좀 그다음 돼. 근데 다른 건 해야 돼. 공부 그냥 제가 삼아 찍고 무슨 바꿔다 차게 되니까 무슨 다리.
So let's use this intellectual delusion. So it has to be, you have to be affected, by some kind of belief or tenets, schools of thought. Because you study that, therefore you say, okay, it has to be like that. Because of that, then you believe that's called intellectual delusion.
Okay.
So if you don't have that, then you don't have intellectual delusion. So in this case, here, what you're mainly abandoning is that intellectual delusion. You haven't abandoned the innate, you only abandoned intellectual delusions.
Okay.
At this point.
가리는 제일 먼저 가리 지금 좀 봐지 그도 말이야. 그래도 많이 샤르다도 지나 이래 되지 이래요. 대라는 것도 더 좀 바꿔서 약간 이상 안 얘기했어.
그래.
정의라시는 거는 지금 지시서 가리 좀 잘못다.
And so, usually, we say that animals don't have intellectual delusions; they only have innate delusions. I think I saw in some texts they say there's no intellectual delusion because they're animals; they only have innate. So even when you're very strongly angry because somebody hit you or says something bad to you, your anger is manifesting. Even that anger is not intellectual. So, because animals can have that. Animals can have that kind of anger, right? From manifesting. Yeah.
다른 것도 다 나도 기왕하지 개나게 왔어. 대도 바꿔다 그랬어. 가난 나도 나베 전달라 진짜 시는 나도 개나게 왔어. 바꿔다. 나한테 뭐 수저로 오는 거 이렇게 가르쳐. 바꿔다. 나도 기왕하지 개나게 와. 대마서 제다 전달 제대로 시는 개나게 와. 다 때는 좀 바꿔다 왔어.
나도 영어로.
대유머도 개말이야. 하시고 좀 바꿔다. 대유머도 개말.
And so again, you can have an intellectual belief, innate belief, intellectual belief. Like you studied Buddhism before that, you never thought there's a past and future life, and you never thought there's three jewels. You never thought that, but later you come to understand. So, oh yeah, there is a past and future life. There are three jewels as an object of refuge and so forth. So you come to understand that that's intellectual. Right? That's intellectual knowledge. So now you grasp at that idea, and so now that becomes intellectual grasping.
뭐 된지가 간제 제대로 먹어야 되는데 안에 강사 나한테 받으면서 봐. 근데다 그 나와서 대통령 받치는 거 뭐가 봐야 되죠.
And so that kind of grasping, intellectual grasping at the self of a person, intellectual grasping at a self of a person, and so that is the delusion that is to be abandoned at that level, the part of uninterrupted part of the part C.
Good. You understand a little bit?
So it says so that is the acquired afflictive obstruction, which are the object of abandonment, which correspond to it.
Okay.
Damcho, can you just restate the last phrase that you said? It was very helpful. It was very clear. You said that you said that the you reiterated at the end. You said that the uninterrupted path of seeing is
And then you spoke about the
To be abandoned within that path.
yes, to the delusions to be abandoned within that path, something to that effect.
So you mean this one here, the acquired afflictive obstruction, which are the object of abandonment, which correspond to it?
Yes.
But you said in your own words.
I think you said it in your own words. It was a little bit more clear.
Yes, you simplified it.
Just said it. Just said it.
I just said it.
Oh, in the cassette, yes.
I think you said that it was the abandonment of, rather than the innate, it was the intellectual. I think that might have been what you said, is that rather than being the innate.
Right.
Innate was like more instinctual.
Right, so for rather, it wasn't, this, at this point we weren't abandoning the innate
Yeah, that's right.
obstructions, rather it was the intellectual.
Intellectual, right?
obstructions.
Intellectual, the afflictive emotion,
Right.
or afflictive obstruction.
Okay? You guys got a little bit?
Yep. Very good.
Little bit idea.
Thank you.
다 텔레데 같이 맞이 킹오가 빠고 빠져야 돼. 와. 니도 빠지 마.
So that is the object of abandonment, of the uninterrupted part of seeing. That is that.
같이 빠지 또 제가 그 샤마 들더라도 그 빠다. 같이 빠지 또 돼. 그래 또는
And so the among the two, like intellectual and innate, afflictive obstruction, the main object of abandonment that is abandoned on the part of uninterrupted part of seeing, is the intellectual afflictive obstruction.
right? Who's the chef master? Their main job is cook, but they do other things. Right?
That's it.
Oh, he said it in English. No, this is the main object of abandonment. The main object of abandonment is this, but he also abandons other things. Mainly it's this, but abandons other things as well. So your job, as a chef, is to cook, but you also maybe might wash dishes, or cut vegetables. You do other things as well.
What is it?
And maybe,
다 텔레데 거다 여자 여자도 다른 여자 동반에 다음에 여자도 야나요 말이야.
so at this point, he's the person, is in meditative equipoise, right? That's not awakened from that meditative equipoise. Started from when, during the path of preparation, at the last level of the path of preparation, he's still in meditation now.
So that is why the person is still
Meditative equipoise.
kind of working on the kind of getting rid of the acquired obstruction for the self, for the person. So for the emptiness, so therefore the person already finished the idea of seeing that you're inherently emptiness and inherently from its own side, but you're still within the zone. That's all.
그래서 그런 그런 나중에 저는 당매에서 이제 당매의 윤세는 가서 그런 그런 가서 뭐 군자 그런 님들이 되지.
뭐다 뭐 번에 접근하죠.
Yes.
다 같이 빠나 들리고 넘어가 죠.
And so he's still working on that, intellectual delusion, afflictive obstruction, just to abandon that. When he has abandoned that, then he moves into the second level, still in meditative equipoise, but second level is the path of release. So it's a path of release. Then you move up to the path of release, from the uninterrupted path to the path of release.
오케이. 다 대라나 네 니들 지금 통화 보시면 그런 얘기 대라는 니들 통화. 저제 yes. That's
So,
what the
so now you understand the definition? Definition of the uninterrupted path, right? So now it talks about the division. It says there are 8 forbearances.
Yes, we don't want to count this 8, okay? Too complicated. 어때? 다른 데라 제시. 아테 강하시더나 안에 강하고 다음에 뜻이든 영화지 아니 니들이 되면 강하시라 그래서 저도 뜻대로 가지고
이런 전화.
죄송해요. 알듯이. 근데 라는데 빠지면 뭐까지 빠졌지. 얘들 그말 니서 좋아. 니들이 또 너는 이제
Says when this is divided, there are the 8 forbearances of a hero's path of seeing, the 4 doctrinal forbearances and 4 subsequent forbearances. So we're not going to go through that in detail now. Maybe it will come later. But the next is the part of the definition of the path of release of hero's path of seeing. Right? Okay, let's all read that together. A clear realization of the truth of hero in meditative equipoise, one point of view on the selflessness of person, and which is actually released from the acquired afflictive obstructions, which are the objects to be abandoned, corresponding to the uninterrupted path which includes it.
그래? 다 주도. 다 니디 돌아 빠지면서 너도라니 냐도 저도 집어야지나. 때도 말하고 저서 왔어.
So the uninterrupted path and the path of release, they happen in one meditative session, one meditative equipoise, right? But they're a little different, right? You see the difference in between these two?
What different?
So the first,
It says about release.
Yes, path of release, right? Yeah.
What's different?
the first one is an antidote, and the second one, they're actually released by that antidote, so they like realize the antidote.
도살했어. 어디가 됐냐고 지금 이번에 돌아왔어.
Oh, good. But they both 나도 집어들어.
So, but they're both at the same, in the same meditative equipoise, right? In one session, yeah.
Can one think of the thank you. Can one think of the path of release as the result of the uninterrupted path? So one is the antidote and one is like the result of the antidote.
Results 되고.
어제 저
지금
어제 뭐때 넘어를 배우러 왔어.
남들.
넘어를 빠져는 배워 버려야.
Yes. Yes. So the path of release is the result, of the path, uninterrupted path. So uninterrupted path, it's like you're taking medicine.
Yep.
And then a path of release is when you're
All better.
free from all that disease. Yeah.
근데 남도는 가디 도와는 가다 됐다 못해 더 버렸어. 못해 가도 내 맛은 못해 다 이거.
So that is the time when you achieve, first time when you achieve the true cessation. The true path and true cessation, when you might be all familiar with, right? Talk about the true path, true cessation. The actual Dharma is the true path, true cessation. So now this is the true cessation that you achieve for the first time. When you achieve the path of release, that's the path of the path of release, the true cessation for the first time.
이거.
So you have ceased that delusion completely. Now you have achieved the true cessation.
이거를 대단한 것도 대파지로 왔나? 근데 니디 돌아 가디 쳐왔나? 근데 가다때 게리까지 쳐서 말해. 남대 쳐서 말해.
And so the person, when he or she achieved the path of seeing, and that time the person becomes what? Sangha, the actual Sangha. Like who has realized emptiness directly, the person has become actual Sangha. And so the uninterrupted path is the true path, and then the path of release is the true cessation.
Okay? They have a lot of relatives,
So the path within his or her continuum is the true path, right? And then the cessation, like the path of release, is the true cessation.
You got it? rare.
So that is they are connected.
I understood the second,
Related.
but can you say the first one again, please?
Which one?
The two
The
things
true
you
path,
said, yeah.
true path, and true cessation.
Right.
So the path within the continuum of that person, the person who has realized emptiness directly, the path within his or her continuum is the true path.
Okay.
So in that case, uninterrupted path is the path, right? And that is within the continuum of that person, so that is the true path. So the path of release is when you have released, when you are free from that illusion. That's the cessation, when you have seized it completely. And so that's called the true cessation.
Okay? 다 대라네 아니 다 시바제에 대한 다 가야죠. 나 제바제에 대한 같이 나오는 거지. 시바제에서 같은 나오는 거지. 근데 나시나 대바제를 잘 아마도 이슈 대한 거지.
And then again, so this path of release, when it's divided, there are 8 knowledges of heroes path. Heroes, the 4 doctrinal knowledge and the 4 subsequent knowledges. And so again, so we're talking about the 16, the path of the uninterrupted and path of release. So the 8 forbearances of the path of uninterrupted path, and then the 8 knowledges of the path of release.
다 되지. 다 되니 가로만 비냐에 그러나 다 얘네 토로베지 돈이라는 거 중에 뭐지 다 니 돌아 아니 되게 뭐지 니디 돌아 되지 다보다 다 니디 돌아 같이 말하고 말 니디 돌아 나도록 말해야 니디 돌아를 해서 나자시래요.
And so now, so then again, anyway, so these are the 8 knowledges, the heroes, the 4 doctrinal knowledge and the 4 substantial knowledge. So that, again, we'll talk in detail later if there is an explanation about that. And then there's now the third one is the neither of those two, right? And so the exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise of the path of seeing of hero, which is neither of these two. Example, neither the uninterrupted path of a hero's path of seeing or the path of release of a hero's path of seeing. For instance, the exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise of the path of seeing of a hero in one point of meditative equipoise on emptiness, and the exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise of the path of seeing a hero in one point of meditative equipoise on the emptiness of duality.
Okay?
You know that?
You got it?
So that's neither of those two. It's not uninterrupted path, and it's not the path of release.
So when does that happen?
Think of the gigas.
대다 니디 돌아 나도록 근데 티라 제다 없이 그거야 동반이 아니고 디바도 나는 된지 나고 티라
So that's you after you come out of the meditative equipoise. 냠체이션 나는 랑거 가서 냠체이션. 냠체이션하라.
그나야 시리네 거기 가서 가서 안다 내가 그거 간다 담아서 봐 안다 대학 5년 동안 이 돈 거기 가서 가서
동료가 제주는 냠바샤거든요. 또 통합 냠샤 이시에다. 이 동네 제주는 냠바샤거든요. 냠체이션.
나도 이제 봤어 이나 다 녀저 예 가서 내가 거기 가서 지나네 제대로 되는 티바라야 넘버도 좀
And so it is meditative equipoise, but not the meditative equipoise, focusing single point focusing on the selfness of a person, right? That's its object, its main object. It's not that. So here it is focusing on what? It's meditating on emptiness. It's meditating on the emptiness of duality, right? So those two. So that's they're meditative equipoise. They're meditating, but the object is different. So that's why it's not uninterrupted path and it's not part of the base.
다 마침으로 넘버로 많이 미치다 가나 다 되니 생이라 som다고 그랬어.
So the reason why meditating on emptiness or meditating on the emptiness of duality is not uninterrupted path. Why is it not uninterrupted path? Then you have to now concentrate on the definition of the uninterrupted path. If it's uninterrupted path, then it has to meet those definitions, right? Every part of the definition. If it doesn't meet any part of the definition, then it's not uninterrupted path. You understand? In order for it to be an uninterrupted path, it has to meet all part of the definition of the uninterrupted path. So now we can go back and see which part it doesn't meet.
Yeah.
So it doesn't.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it doesn't meet the uninterrupted, the part that's the object isn't the selflessness of persons. The object isn't the selflessness of persons, it's something else. But so is it possible to become an Arya being, realize emptiness directly, and then you move from path of preparation to path of seeing? But then when you do that move, you don't move to the uninterrupted path. You move to this because you're not meditating on selflessness of persons. You see?
So 그러면 냠샤가 유대 친구 대교가 데려갔어.
그래.
그런 제도 가서 더 봐줘. 더 털람도 가서 년도 있다. 저람을 제수 타고라. 그런 털람도 가서 저람 조제수 주었다. 근데 그거 막고 버렸어. 뒤져요. 근데 인바다 이나 그 가서 유대 냠샤 이식이 유대라. 유대 남에 많이 가사기 남에 많이 뒤지는 시작했어.
나는 니네 돌아 받지만 말해 와서 많이 배웠나 가사가 때문에 되는 게 뭐지 강조라는 거지 빠지는 게 말해 들어와.
And so there's the two part that it doesn't meet. The one thing is that it's not in a meditative equipoise one pointedly on the selfness of person, right? Because it's meditating on emptiness. And the other part is it's not an actual antidote for the acquired afflictive obstruction, which are the object of abandonment, which correspond to it. Therefore, it's not the uninterrupted path. Yeah, so just because it doesn't meet that part that it's not one-pointedly and on meditative equipoise one-pointedly on the selflessness of the person. Just because of that, you can say it's not unlimited power.
But, so then that brings me again, when does it happen then?
When does what happen? Oh, you mean like when you achieve that?
Yeah, when do you achieve it? If you go into meditative equipoise and you automatically are in meditative equipoise on selflessness of person, and then you're on the uninterrupted path.
Yes.
And then right from that you go into the path of release. And so then you're no longer in meditative equipoise.
Yes.
When does this meditative equipoise happen? Is it subsequent? And does it have to happen before you can move on to the purest path of meditation, which is next?
다 데리가는 다 나로를 틀라네 야 담에 다 이도 아파냐 마셔도 버리고 나로를 타는 제타를 시간에 야 데라파냐 마셔도 버리고 티바도
Yes, it has to happen, and after you awake, you get up, get out of that meditation. And so, because during that meditation, you are either, you are meditating on the selfness of the person. You can't be meditating on other things, right? And so then, soon after that, you achieve the path of release. And then after that, you come out of meditation, and then later again, at some point, before moving up, to the path of meditation, you again maybe you just spend some time meditating on the emptiness of duality or on emptiness. At that time, you are meditating, you are in meditative equipoise, but not uninterrupted path or path of release.
다 나로는 말이지 나로는 다 라이제 담에 냐냐냐 시고 그거라 아랑도 받치면 뭐가 저발 미스 좋아요 그래서 단단히 저발 조사 되는 미스 좋아요 말해서 와 그냥 냠자로 시라니 아주 되게 마찬가지 이거 너무 체다고 이사를 바로 추시면 맞춰야 됩니다 대응 체다고
And then also there's the part which says the actual antidote, and actual substance and actual antidote for the affiliative obstruction. So it is, I could say it is an antidote, So every meditation on emptiness is an antidote, but it's not the actual antidote for that delusion which corresponds to it.
Right?
How would you define duality here? Duality.
이또 가서 생각을 해야 수단선생님한테 되지 또
So duality here again is the same as what is explained in the mind oneness school, the object and the object apprehender. Seeing those two as separate is the duality. So the empty of that, and not seeing those two as two as separate, separate substance is the emptiness of duality.
Okay. 다 되면 다 동반이나 녀마녀마 시다나 이 동안 녀마녀한테 다 일이 돌아 빠지면 말이야. 일이 돌아 넘어가는 말이야. 얘나 일이 돌아 녀저 시해라고 하고 그러고.
And so meditation on the emptiness or meditation on the emptiness of duality, is not an uninterrupted path of seeing, and it's not a path of release or path of seeing, but it is part of meditation, right? And part of meditative equipoise, right? So it's the exalted wisdom of the meditative equipoise.
I prove.
So what is the reason that it is part of, it is exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise? It is meditative equipoise, right? Meditating on emptiness is the exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise or not? Is it or not?
The book says so.
Yes, that's why.
Why?
Because you're still thinking about the emptiness of duality.
You're meditating on emptiness.
Yes.
You're meditating.
Yes.
You're in meditation, on
Yes.
emptiness. So therefore, you can say it is meditative equipoise.
Yes.
Good.
라이트에 담에다 드리는 게 맞아요. 이게 대만의 동사 얘들이 도만 열려지 있어.
So you can then you refer to you go back to, he says why meditating on emptiness is a exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise. Why is it? The best reason, best answer is to state the definition of meditative. Because you can say because it's a clear realization of Hero's truth, which is meditative equipoise, focus on wondering on selfness and the selflessness, the emptiness, which is object.
Okay.
So you just refer to the definition.
안 생이다. 단 생이다.
So whether it is meditative equipoise or not, check whether it is the definition of meditative equipoise or not. So So you always go back to the definition. The definition is very important. If you know the definition, then you can always be correct, to say yes, it is meditative equipoise.
Yeah, you miss a little part of the, what's that? Then go below.
So if you miss any part of the definition, if you're not familiar with the definition, or if you miss any part of the definition, then you get confused.
What? What?
It's 9, number 9.
Number 9.
Yeah, the number 9.
Okay.
Usually when I study Dharma, and I'm actually doing what I'm supposed to be doing on all fronts, when I have realizations and make progress, it usually comes in an effusive outpouring. It usually comes, they say like a vast, profound rain of Dharma. It never comes one realization at a time. So as we move on higher in the path, can we expect that, and sometimes when that happens, let me be clear that sometimes when that happens, it becomes confusing because suddenly I have to go back and relook at everything I've learned because I see it more deeply. So, but as we get up higher in the path, can we expect that the way in which we're speaking about these things in such concise steps, can we expect that the steps will get smaller and more difficult to attain and not come all at once? Is that because it feels so counterintuitive for me to speak about these realizations in such independent moments, because usually they're so interdependent.
So normally, when you acquire, the realizations in you, it comes one at a time. If you have to work, on one at a time, only when you have worked on that, then you achieve it. Without working on that, you will not achieve it. So you can't work on all at the same time. You have to work on one at a time. Therefore, the realization you acquire happens at one at a time. And then as you go higher and higher, of course, it takes longer time and becomes more difficult. So same thing, when you study in a regular school, in a regular mundane school, when you go to school, first you go to the first grade, then you go up to second grade, third grade. You don't get all the 10 grades at the same time. And then as you go higher, to study into getting a bachelor's, master's, or PhD, it becomes harder and harder and takes longer time, right? It's similar to that. And so the subject matter becomes even more vast, right? And then it's more difficult, it takes a long time. So same thing. So as you practice in the path, higher you go, more difficult it becomes. But then, of course, more knowledge you occur, and also more benefit you can perform for other people. So more difficult it is, better it is also, and then more you can do to help others also. And so now you know, right? So the person becoming the actual sangha and achieving the path of seeing, right? And then achieving, the path of the true path, the true cessation, all at the same during the same session. and you become sangha, you achieve path of seeing, and you see emptiness directly, all that happening at the same time, right?
와, 드린 일이 토너 강사들라 아니 법에 강사스. 디디진 여자시들라 남대들다 남래.
And so the person who achieved the path of seeing, is become what? Sangha, and becomes a superior being also, right? We call it superior being, Arya being. And then a path within his or her continuum is called the true path. Like the uninterrupted path, the path of release, those are all called true paths.
아니 나도 자 문제를 딱 죽여줬더라고 와서 지금까지 문제처럼 가서 영어 경험이 되거든요. 너무 빨리 돼딱 죽여주자고 그래서 되게 딱 남대들에서.
So we normally say the actual refuge is Dharma, right? The Dharma jewel is the actual refuge. So now here, this is what we're talking about, the Dharma jewel. And the actual Dharma jewel is the true path and true cessation. So that is the actual refuge that protects us from all the sufferings.
이제 받침이나 파티나 받침이나 망보를 딱 가서 받침이나 수술 못 가지 뻔하자 딱 반겨서 간지 세마로 또 그러더라고.
So and there are many different kind of uninterrupted paths. So for each ground there's an uninterrupted path. So these uninterrupted paths, they abandon the delusions, which corresponds to it.
Okay. You are confused or a little bit unstraight?
Both.
Both? You sometimes a little confused. Otherwise, I always say, oh yeah, I know. Not much interest. 다른 시바지 되는 것이 시험 보죠. 간제 미리 돈을 넣어야지 생기대 시험하라고 치고 그래서.
So you have to understand the definitions, especially here in this case, the definition of the meditative equipoise, the exalted wisdom of meditative equipoise. So if you know that, then you can see whether anything you other say is meditative equipoise or not.
이제 다 빼자 로조 쳤는데 만도 나오는 도 로조도 잘 만드는 틀림은 별로 선거거든요.
So this is not like studying a language, right? Here there are so many definitions and divisions and all these things, and you have to memorize them.
Otherwise, that could catch you. Somebody asked her to catch you. Then you always confuse. They say very similar. They don't change. They always you don't know which one's
So someone might say this is the definition. And so this is our one system's definition. Our one system's definition is the definition that you should hold it all the time. And then based on that, you see whether other people, whatever definition other people give, whether that accords with this definition or not. So you say, oh no, that's not the right definition because if, for it to be the right definition, it has to have these things. And so if you don't have that, then it's not the right definition. So whatever, Sarah might say this is the definition, and you can say no, it's not. Or David might say, this is the definition. So whatever definition they give on their own, if it doesn't meet with this definition, then you have a solid proof to go against that. Otherwise you might say, oh, I see, okay. Agree with that.
가상가서 되는 사람서 동원 단 조제들 맞 상황이 사회 대인가도 하는 샤서 맞 되게 연나 야르는 같이 가르쳐도 가르쳐도 됐다고.
And so last time we jumped, right? A few pages with several pages, not just a few, several pages we jumped. Yeah, 15 pages that we jumped. And so on those pages, if there are other people, somebody else is saying, this is the definition of ground, this is the definition of path. And so now we know what is the actual definition. And then you can go back and see what kind of definition they give and see whether that makes sense or not.
그래서 나도 딱 말아도 나만은 나도 근데 길루바이만 나올 때 저거 말했어. 단다 이리 돌아 받침으로 여자 뒤에다 시한적으로 요 말에서 로셀도 사람이 고수 있잖아 이거 고수들 캐내는 거.
And sometimes even among the schools, even among the Gelugpa tradition, Gelug tradition of school, they have different scriptures. So one explains definition of this in this way, and one explains definition of this in that way. So that can be different. There can be difference in that. And so like the Bodhisattva on the path, an uninterrupted path, is focusing 100% focusing on emptiness, right? So at that time, does he have bodhicitta in his mind or not? Is he thinking about I must achieve it instead of not even for the benefit of all sentient beings? Is he thinking like that at that time? No, right? Because he's 100% on emptiness. And so then at that time you might say, oh, he doesn't have bodhicitta, because he doesn't have that thought. But then if he doesn't have that thought, then he's not bodhisattva. So at that time you have to say he's not bodhisattva. So there's this kind of thing. So some Gelugpa tradition, of school says that at that time there's no bodhicitta in his heart.
Because he can't do two things at once.
That's right, but then others says it's not manifesting, but it's there. It's there, but it's not manifesting at that time. You're not actively thinking I must achieve state of enlightenment, but in the back of your mind you have that thought.
That seems reasonable.
So I mean, so that's why there's different schools have different ways of explaining things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The Gelugpa monks have a lot of time.
Okay. Now don't forget when the people reach the path. Okay, what they call this person. When the person reach the palm, Aya path. Remember what they achieve together. What they give many names. Don't forget these things. Okay. And Tambola Vashuddhana, Lamji Kansa, and Thoma Masya.
So the person who first enters the path is what is called what? First, when he first enters into the path,
Ordinary?
coordinator,
Ordinary.
ordinary,
Ordinary being.
ordinary beings. Yes, that's so skilled like this. Ordinary beings. That's true. But what is the first path? Path of accumulation. So the first path is the path of accumulation. So what is the first path that you enter into? The path of accumulation. So what is the first path that you enter into when you become a spirit being?
See.
Path of seeing.
Path of seeing. Yeah. So you have to know those things. So when do you first become part of a spirit being?
When you first,
Yeah, when you first become a spirit being.
just when you finish what you're talking about ourselves.
I won't be talking all the time.
Just when you finish the
When you achieve the path of seeing.
Yeah.
When you achieve the path.
Yes, at the path of
Yeah.
release.
The
When
release
you
is over.
achieve it.
No, when you achieve the path of seeing. The moment you achieve the path of seeing, you become spirit being. So when do you first become spirit being?
Because you have to have had the direct realization of emptiness.
That's
and
right.
what
So
gets
when
you
do you first become spirit being?
when you have direct realization of emptiness.
Okay.
Path of
In
seeing.
terms of the path, when you
You move
achieve
to
the
the
path
path
of
of
seeing.
seeing. You move into that path.
I mean, you are spirit being, when you're in path of meditation, but that's not the first time, right?
Yeah.
The first time when you become spirit being, is when you achieve the path of seeing. So that's what Geshe is saying, that you have to know when do you first become part of, when do you first become spirit beings. So when do you first enter into a path? When you have achieved the path of accumulation, at that time you have entered into the path. That's the first time you enter into the path.
근데 개들게 주쳐버려, 법에 강사 쳐버려, 도망 받쳐버려, 뭐 그래서.
So you become a spirit being, you become actual sangha, right? Sangha jewel, and you realize emptiness directly. All this happens at the same time.
Okay? Otherwise, we don't know the things, then we have the science that we don't know. Okay. 남자들 대통령 소소 한번 어디 가요? 쳐버려서.
So if you don't know that, you might be on that path and you don't know. That's-
Okay, anyway.
you might have thought all this time you're ordinary beings. Suddenly you realize you're
Wow, that's
But when you just enter the path of seeing, you're still also, like, there's an overlap happening, right? You're still on the path of preparation and on the path of seeing at the same time because you're in that meditative equipoise. So have you entered it?
You're not at the same time. You're not on those two paths at the same time. You can say that happens in one meditative session. The meditative session can be long. It could be for a year, could be for 100 years. That meditative session, or could be a few months, few weeks. So in one meditative session, but not at the same time.
One section.
In one session. So in one
No.
session.
저런 초조 첨보다 되는 다음 양식이다. 그래서 마시면 더 상관되는 뒤치다.
뒤쪽으로 완전 뒤치지. 뒤치
In the
기대로
same
와.
session, in one session.
So in one session, you are in two two zones.
Yes.
You're on two paths in one session.
One section.
So you've already entered the path of seeing, but you have not yet finished the path of preparation.
No. You have finished the path of preparation. You have finished the path of preparation, and then you enter the path of seeing. All this happened. All this, leaving and entering, leaving path of preparation, entering the path of seeing, happened in one session, during one meditative equipoise. So that, like I said, the meditative equipoise could be, a lengthy one, could be just very short time, could be very long. So it can all happen. But it will happen in in that one duration. So that duration can be 100 years, 1 year.
And that's why you call it uninterrupted.
Not for that reason. For instance, the tele pachime al machiv se this was.
아침에는 그래도 대마다 아침마다 그러면 뭐까지 빠져 되기냐에 빠지는 거라.
바로 맞춰서 가르치는 바로 맞춰서.
발치가 마시나 그러면 여자 발 맞춰 봐. 랑다랑게 랑데지 랑 되어지고 남도랑도 큰다 발 맞춰 봐. 되게 봐. 되어져 줘.
So yeah, normally so during the path of preparation, you don't have the uninterrupted path. So you're during that time until you wake up from that meditation. After you achieve the path of release, and you wake up. So during that time, it's all in one session. It's all uninterrupted, and in terms of the meditation, it's uninterrupted, right? But it's not called uninterrupted path. The uninterrupted path here specifically is saying that it's not uninterrupted by other path, and to abandon that delusion which corresponds to it. So in one session, in one go, without any interruption.
It's delusion specific.
Yeah, there's specific delusion, that corresponds with it. Not any kind of delusion, but only that which corresponds with it at that time.
랑데지 랑을 되어지고 남도랑 딱 미디 내려져서나 아니 딱 저어를 보여서 미디 내려.
So then that path of release and path of uninterrupted path. So like you said, there's the cause and effect. So it becomes the actual cause of the path of release, the uninterrupted path.
Otherwise, you debate someone, yeah, always something say. Okay? 근데 다들이 너도 여자시 납사이 바체문화 심 남로나 납사이 다 제다심을 하게 되고.
So now today we went through all these three meditative equipoises, right? Uninterrupted, path of release, and neither of those two. So we went through. Now next time we're going to go through the subsequent attainment, which is also called the post-meditative equipoise.
Okay. Well, next home was this kind of. I'm a little bit, maybe, color. Maybe look back. Okay. Go back there to home training.
Reflection.
Not look back, not refresh. That's who can guess. No, he said he's going to, create a little bit more confusion.
Confusion.
Play some trick,
Okay.
Ask a trick question.
Yeah.
If we've entered some sort of path, even if it's not in the paths we're talking about, and we make a lot of progress, and then we become very angry and very lustful and lose all our merit, because karma is always increasing. Can we expect that it will actually be much harder to enter that path again because we generated so much negative merit by destroying that path? Can we expect that it will actually be much harder and not easier because you've already been there, much harder to get back into that path again?
You mean this kind of path or the other path you're talking about?
A good path, a realizations, a spiritual path.
Not the path we're talking about now.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah.
근데 나도 람 쉐저라 딜람만 거지 제가 최근 람 최근 람 그런 최최 그런 또 보고 그러냐 봐지라 람라 쉐저 초 보고 그러냐 봐지 년에 내가 년에 제가 그냥 또 컨트롤 춤추면서 아니면 차고 춤추고 되는 게 그냥 그런 게 당연히 사실 손님들 세스 또 와이나 자면다네 근데 제가 이제 되는 손님 때문에 아주 최근 람라 쉐저 그걸 같이 그래서 영화를 되는 카와이 쉐저 그래서 가서는 거기다 손님들 정말 세상에서
그래 대차를 했어. 빠데 달에 손을 들어. 가서 나온 주에 되는 거. 만소려 와나. 나 리 잘라 치고 그냥 리 강도는 가서 리 친구들에 들었어. 빠데는 양주 마사나. 아니 양주가 밀려야도 겨와서 갈까 보셔. 아니 가서는 양주 갈까 보라.
Yes, it will be very hard to get back to the path again, because you have, like you said, you have destroyed all the merits, and you have nothing left to pull you back. So right now, like we are climbing on the mountain, and we're in the middle of the mountain. We're carrying this big load on our back, and climbing the mountain. We're in the back, in the middle of the mountain. If we don't strive to go further, instead of fall down, it will be so difficult to get back again. So it's similar to that.
Okay, and I had one more small question. If we, at some point, we've developed a ton of great renunciation and we're able to do Vajra breathing and cultivate fire and have great realizations and think extremely clearly, help others and things like that, then could you say, if you're able to do Vajra breathing like that and experience your own fire and use it for others' benefit, would you say that you, in combination with the renunciation required to be able to do that, would you say that that would be suggest that you validly had experienced the beginning of the path of heat?
I'm not exactly familiar with what you are saying about the Vajra breath and the developing, experiencing heat in your body and so forth. But the heat level that we're talking about is not that kind of actual heat. So the fire that destroys, fire that consumes the delusion is what? And it's the wisdom realizing emptiness, right? Wisdom realizing emptiness directly. So the uninterrupted path, which is realizing emptiness directly, that is the tool, actual tool, like a knife to cut vegetable, like we said before, and it's the actual fire that consumes the delusions, like that delusion, corresponding to it, and so that is like the fire, and so the heat level, so before you get the actual fire, you experience a little bit of the heat at that time, so you start to have some realization of that, not the whole realization, not the whole fire, but you can feel some heat at that time. You're starting to have that realization. That's what I mean by that. The heat of the fire, or the heat or the experience of that wisdom realizing emptiness directly. So wisdom realizing emptiness directly is the fire, and then the heat of that you experience in the path of preparation. So that is the heat we're talking about.
I see.
Okay.
Okay, now we start. Thank you.